welcome to Fresh Quilting. I'm Catherine of Running Dough Quilts, and I'm here today to talk to you about Scrappy quilts. Scrappy quilts are one of those classic favorites in the quilting world. There's lots of visual interest, tons of favorite fabrics, lots of fun stuff going on. But they can be a bit of a pain to lay out. Traditionally, they would use whatever they had laying around. Odds and ends of other projects, bits of leftover clothing that was too worn out, they find a little piece. These days, though, we like to head on down to our favorite local quilt store and pick out a little bit more of a curated bundle of scraps. So you can make it easy on yourself with pre-cuts like jelly rolls and layer cakes, or you can buy fat quarters. You can really go crazy with Scrappy quilts and get anything that you want to sew. Then you get home, you cut it all out, and you're ready to sew it all together, and it can be a bit of a headache. It seems like the more you try, the more things end up touching themselves, or too many over here, too little over there, and it's not as much fun as you expected it to be laying out this fun, wild, scrappy quilt. So there's a few things you can do to solve this headache. The first thing you can do is to take all your fabrics, throw them in a bag, cover your eyes, and just start sewing. It's really fun to do and kind of freeing, but something's gonna touch itself, it's not gonna be perfect. And so if you'd like a little bit more control, but not to the point of analyzing over where each one was going, you can do what I like to think of as sort of a sorted Scrappy. So what I do is I take all my fabrics and I sort them into piles, my A piles and my B piles. So all of these pinks are gonna go in A, all of these oranges in B. There won't be any crossover, so all of each color is gonna end up in its own pile. So A, B, just like so. Keep going until I've sorted all of my fabrics into A and B. And then I've got this dark blue in here, a sort of a wild color that you can see. We're gonna take these over here to the design wall, and we're gonna start laying them out, thinking about it as a giant checkerboard with A's and B's. So we're gonna go A fabric, whoop, that was two pieces, B fabric, A fabric, B fabric, and so on. And we can just keep going with all of our pieces, A, B, and just like on a checkerboard where the whites don't touch the whites and the blacks don't touch the blacks, your A's and your B's will stay separated and you don't have to worry about anything touching. But doing it square by square is gonna be just about as much of a headache as trying to keep up with everything the other way. So what I like to do is rather than go square by square, I start combining. So we've got all of my A fabrics were put into these 4 squares, and all of my B fabrics were put into these 4 squares, and then I can checkerboard with these 4 pieces. So A, B. I don't necessarily care if they touch on the diagonal like this, but you can control that really easily when you're sewing these 4 squares together. It's much, much easier to control things not touching inside of here than it is in the real world. So A, B, I get started with A, so let's go B. And this is your quilt, so do what you want to. These rules aren't hard and fast. If you want to move an A square to a B position, you're allowed to do that. And what you'll see is if you want to rotate one of these blocks inside of here, like if you thought, oh, that's too close to that or whatever, you can rotate within the block. It's not a big deal. But if you just keep sewing, A, B, you're not gonna worry about anything touching. So this is sort of level 1 of this. You can also do this in stripes, so A rows and B rows instead of a checkerboard. Personally, I find that I have more control over my layout that's a B square, over my points matching when I do squares than I do when I do rows. But either way, you're just thinking about things not touching. So the next level to this would be if you're doing things like half square triangles. You have all your A triangles and all your B triangles. Or you can come over here to your rails and you have all your A rails and all your B rails. You could even start mixing these together and you really wouldn't have to worry about anything touching because, let's move these down. B, make sure I keep them in order. So, you really wouldn't have to worry about anything touching because all of these A pieces and all of these B pieces are in their own little home. So A, B, can't remember that was, I think that's a B. A, B. I have to remember which is A and B. And now remembering which is A and B can be sort of the headache. So a good trick is to get you a erasable marking pen and mark on the back A, B, A, B, A, B. So things to think about when you're doing this, when you're picking and you're deciding what goes in A and B. If you only have one high contrast fabric like this blue, you don't really have to think about it. But if you have two high contrast fabrics, you have to decide if you want to separate them into A and B and be okay with them touching, or if you want to put them all in A because it's easier to control your placement in these 4 patches and make sure things aren't right next to each other that you don't want right next to each other. It's sort of a keep your enemies closer type thing. Keep the fabrics that you definitely don't want to touch each other in the same pile. So in the B's or in the A's. If I had a ton of dark ones, I'd probably split them up and make it even. But these are things that you'll think about as you learn this technique of sorting it into checkerboards or strips. So like I said, A, B, and you won't have to worry about anything touching. You can sort of expand it with your big pieces, so your A 4 patches, and then you can surround it by, think of a B 4 patch. But see, that was a B. When the B went next to each other, you ended up with a color touching almost immediately. So you want to pull a different B. But when I'm sewing these together, these 4 patches of these, again, everything touches immediately. That's actually 2 different pinks. But we can put that over here because I can control that it's not right next to where the other one was. And then these are all B fabrics, so it should be pretty easy. Like I said, just think of it like a giant checkerboard. And some of these pinks are really close together, so I don't want them touching. It would be easier if they were all in the B combos because I wouldn't have to worry about them touching. So it would be easier if they were all in the B combos because I'd be sewing these 4 patches together really easily, keeping them separated. And then I could go to my machine with these A and B 4 patches and just paying attention to where I'd marked A and B on the back, just start sewing and nothing would touch. So I only have to control here. Now, a lot of times on scrap quilting, you don't want anything to touch itself, but in modern quilting, we like to use negative space and design elements, and you can experiment with how having fabrics touch themselves creates new shapes and new layers. Negative space flows into the next area, all sorts of things like that. So you can take all your B's and within there play with what happens if these colors touch themselves. I can make different symbols. I can help move the fabric or move the quilt from one area into the next. And so you can get these nice little shapes like that. If I kept all the oranges to the center, I'd end up with something kind of like this quilt over here with the snowball affected corner. So really, it's anything you like to do on scrappy quilts. You can go wild. So I like to sort into my A's and my B's, control in my A's and B's, and then go to the design wall and see what comes out of it. What comes out of it when I let fabrics touch themselves, when I look at all these different pathways I can create, all sorts of things. Let's pull in some of these. This is me just playing with the B's. So, the minimum number of fabrics you want to have on a scrappy quilt is about 8 to 10. Anything less than that, and you're really going to have a headache getting a good variety going. So inside of here, this is only 6, and it's really hard for me to keep things separated. But I'm not trying to do that right now. I'm trying to see what will come of my experimenting. So all sorts of fun stuff. You can sort of step back, see what you like, see what you don't like. There really aren't any rules to scrappy quilting. It is seriously a throw it all up there and see what works kind of game. So I hope you'll take this technique, expand on it to fit your own project and your own patterns and see what you can come up with, keeping things separate or putting them together. Really, it's a whole wide world of possibilities. So take it, have fun, and enjoy.